Well, we can get started here. Um, when we last left off, you all had actually accepted the blacksmith's dilemma. There's a bladesmith in Puerto del Sol. His name is Antonio Torres. He's actually the uncle of Gabriel Torres, the bard who have you befriended from your voyage over into the Sun-Kissed Isles. And Gabriel went to his uncle looking for work, and it just so happened that he did have work that needed to be done. He offered the group 1,000 gold pieces to recover a blade that had been stolen from him, or rather, stolen from his courier. He had sent the blade off to a jeweler across the stairs to try to get some finishing work done. And on its way back to his shop, a group of individuals sort of well, shanghaied is the best way to say it, the courier, and stole the blade, left everything else, stole the blade. So you guys have begun to conduct an investigation. At first, you sort of sussed out that this individual, the courier, whose name was Luca Ballesteros, who operates as a courier for a number of individuals in the stairs, was located at the Black Flagon Inn, or not inn, but bar, my apologies. And, after going out and bringing him out into the street and speaking to him for a bit, you learned a little bit more about what had been going on, about the path that he had taken that day. You guys sort of analyzed it, tried to see where individuals might have cased him, might have cased the Gold Hills, who are the jewelers that were finishing the blade, and where other, areas of note might be along the path. Um, After gathering some information and looking about the various different angles and opportunities that one could have, you narrowed it down to an alleyway. You managed to find a witness that had said that they'd seen someone, a ne'er-do-well perhaps, skulking about that alley with a black rose tattoo. And through the various different individuals in the party, you were able to recognize it may belong to an individual from La Rosa Negra, which in common is the Black Rose, a thieves and assassins guild that operates in the Sun-Kissed Isles. Um, they tend to have territory amongst gambling dens and brothels, and that actually happens to be the same area of influence that Raul Rodrigo, the man who had the dagger crafted for himself, uh, is under as well. So the group has a couple of working theories, but you guys were working your way further into Old Town, which is whereabouts the individuals that stole the blade presumably fled to. And so we actually left off with you guys about to cross the Silk Bridge that goes from Silkside over into Old Town. Um, was there any thing I missed there, or anything that anyone wanted to add? You, so, that aside, You guys were headed off into Old Town, I presume. I think you were following the trail of the thieves, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe you had other intentions and such. But Gabriel will happily lead you over in that direction. Is there anything that you guys are looking for in particular, or anything that you are headed for in particular? They they beat him pretty, good, but they didn't, do anything that probably would have been considered unnecessarily, rough, as unnecessary as, jumping someone who is carrying a blade that they were entrusted to carry, is. Well, you guys could, you know, it's going to be in retrospect now, so it's not going to be as easy as it would be if you were examining him at first, but medicine seems like an applicable skill for that. Yep. Hmm. Tough to say, especially given the amount of time and also the fact you're going off of memory at this point. He's not in front of you. So, so as you guys are headed, I'm presuming to Raul Rodrigo's brothel, which is the Lost Coast. Gabriel actually knows where it is, and he's able to lead you guys through Old Town. Um, it's much less grand than the stairs. Not everything is as well kept as it is there. There are still street lanterns and lights and, guards about and things of that sort. At least the areas that you're going through, they're not particularly rough looking or run down. But every once in a while, there's a broken lantern or there's, like a block of rundown sort of tenement, like, buildings or anything of that sort. And, it turns the idea is that the stairs is just constantly manicured and upkept and built upon, and Old Town, it's a little bit more settled in and more, almost normal as to what you would be used to in most of the areas of Pescana or other cities. Um, uh, I would say Wilmington would probably be too big of a stretch as well. We'd be talking. Uh, this would be like trying to think of a applicable city or something like that. This would be like maybe the Irish neighborhood of Wilmington or the Italian neighborhood in Wilmington, as opposed to other areas that are a little bit rougher or anything of that sort. Like there's some nice areas and such, and then you hit a block and it might be a little bit bad. So Wilmington's probably not so far off, but that said, uh, it's not nearly that bad. At least the area that Gabriel is taking you through. Again, you haven't seen all of it. Yes, a lot of these areas you can see there's smiths, tailors, pubs, inns, just typical buildings that you'd. Uh, Not a lot of churches, by the way. As you pass through the near the center of the city, past the Silk Bridge, you can see that there's like an open air marketplace, and there's only been one area that looks like it's a house of worship that you've actually seen since you've come into the city, and it looks like it's a broken up galleon, uh, uniquely enough, that has been repurposed into most of a building. Some areas of it haven't been built over and such, but it's very clearly that this was a broken up ship at one point. And that's the Temple of Gazra, which is the god of seas and such. So um, very prevalent for the individuals in the Sun-Kissed Isles to worship such a deity, given that the society was based on pirate life at first. Um, but moving along with Gabriel, he takes you almost to the far side of the city of Porta del Sol. Yes, that is the Silk Bridge that he would have brought you across. hmm the very large building appears to be almost like a town center or a town hall of sorts. There is a bell on the building, and you can see that there are Rodrigo House guards about that area. Um, the sigil and on the signs and such is not their exact seal though. It looks like a variation of their sigil for whatever reason and or purpose. So it's not the exact same one that Lord Mateo Rodrigo had on his tabard when he came down to the docks. And you've seen also Julio's use the family seal and sigil and all sorts of other things. You have seen this one about though on his ship. Like some of the crates and some of the boxes and such had a stamp that was similar to this variation of their family seal. No problem. But going past that and the across the way from there is where the church would be. But he brings you more or less, along alleyways and other takes you off the main path, and you are all headed uh, back almost to the wall of the city, not near any of the gates. But definitely towards a tower and some of the wall that keeps the city in. Um, and this little courtyard area around this triangle appears to be absolutely gorgeous. Like it's almost like part of the stairs. There are well manicured, almost gardens in the center. There's several fountains. The fountains are not terribly PG in that they're mostly of naked men and women. And for lack of a better term, most of them are endowed in some capacity or another. Uh, Looking about at the buildings are actually as nice as some of the ones in the stairs, with one central building sort of dominating that towards the back. There's multiple fountains on either side of the building as you come into the entryway, and it sort of loops around down into this courtyard. Um, some of the statues, as they start to get towards the building, look like they have demonic or devilish features. They're still like, naked men or women, but some of them have horns or other, demonic, fangs, teeth, things like that. Um, but you get across to the doorway, and you can see that the doors are closed, and there's a couple of guards outside. At least they look like guards. They're not wearing any house livery, and they just are in leathered armors and armed. And it's when you guys get here that Gabriel turns to you and says, "I, unlike most of the other brothels, which are open throughout most of the day, um, I forgot that this one in particular will not be opened until nightfall. Um, Usually there's some sort of performance associated with whatever's going on, and the dance hall is fairly lively, but they are not open until after the sun goes down. It was around about that time, yeah. Well, there's other brothels around. Okay. It's about 2 or 3 in the afternoon at this point, as you guys have been conducting your investigation for several hours. Both the guards look at each other, and then they both look back at you. The first one speaks, "No, you may not meet with him. He is very busy." They both sort of chuckle as they look back and forth. Certainly. I'm sure that he'd be more than willing to meet with you, say next month sometime. What business do you have with Lord Rodrigo? They both look cursorily at each other. What do you mean one of his items was stolen? Virgil, you said. Um, the one guard looks at the other. Let's bring it to Carmen at least. She'd know what to do. Um, and one of the guards goes inside and closes the door behind him as the other guard sort of stares at you all. Um, after about 2 or 3 minutes, uh, a woman comes out of the doorway, and let me see here. Do I'll at least pop her onto the map. So, there is a beautiful Castellano woman that comes to the door. She has sort of brownish reddish hair. She's wearing what is clearly either a dancer's costume or something that you would wear. I mean, it's beautifully manicured and such, but it's clear. It's sequined, and there are like bells and tassels upon it to make noise and such. So it's clear that this is meant for performing. But as she comes to the doorway, you can see that she sort of commands the respect of the guards, and she looks around at first, expecting to have someone at eye level, and then she looks down at Virgil because she's about 6'1", 6'2" herself, uh, and she goes, "Excuse me, but You were the one that inquired with regards to something stolen from Lord Rodrigo? There's a blade, you say, and it has been stolen from Lord Rodrigo. She looks crossly at one of the guards. So it is not his property as of yet. It's a piece of property he was looking to acquire. Thank goodness. Good. Because several men might have paid a dear price as she looks back at the two guards behind her if something had been stolen from Raul Rodrigo. Hmm, not really at the moment. Unfortunately, we're still setting up inside, and I have so many little helpers about that any sort of conversation of this sort I would prefer not to have around some of them. But if you wish, perhaps you can come back later and Raoul will grant you an audience and discuss this further with you. But if he has not purchased it in full yet, I mean, good luck with regards to your investigation, but they did not steal from Raul Rodrigo. I'm not as concerned with that. Also, a weapon? Raul does not carry weapons. Yeah, maybe he was giving it as a gift, indeed. Well, you're correct. She's got a ample amount of bosom showing. She's got her midriff showing. The actual, flowy sort of pants that she's wearing around underneath, like sort of a larger flowing dress. They tightly hug her hips as well. But certainly, it'll be on the far right, most likely. Yeah, it's not with the other skills. I whispered you the result, Jim. Regardless, you all should come back later. I will be dancing, and it should be quite the show. Flattery will get you everywhere. Both don't hurt. Uh, well, lore in the applicable area would probably be apropos, but let me take a look down uh, a list of the skills really quickly to see if there's anything that would be more apropos than not. Okay, I'll get to that right after that. I would say that there's a number of different lores that would be applicable here. You could take a, stab with society, but society is not really necessarily what that would be good for. Um, Bards also have bardic lore, and I mean, if you're skilled in performance, typically you know like the history of the style of performance and things of that sort. So that might be semi-applicable, but again, tough to say if you don't have like lore of the Isles or lore like with regards to specific, types of thing like, theater lore or, dance lore or anything of that sort. Sure, absolutely. Well, so a few things of note. I'll actually whisper them to you really quick, just because. And testing first. There we go. That worked. And this is going to be over several messages, so just to let you know. Not quite yet, but as soon as I'm done typing these messages, I'll sort of carry that out. That's about everything you get. Um, but she says, "Well, if you'll all excuse me, I must go prepare for my performance. And so I will leave you all to your own devices, but after sundown, please come in, and you should find the performance most agreeable. Okay. Yes. She. Um. Well. The name actually is in reference to a particular flower, an orchid, perhaps. I have heard of her before. Um, I have not met her until now, um, but I believe she is referred to as the Crimson Orchid or the Bloodied Orchid. The translation from Castellanos is a little bit vague with regards to the wording. Sure. Yes. Well, I will do my best not to disappoint. Thank you, little one. As she sort of turns and the guards open up the door and close it behind her. Um, so, Kane, you asked the guards about looking for uh, work or them, looking to work in other places. Um, they both sort of look at each other, look up at you, and say, "Well, I mean, we're not going to laugh at your offer because, frankly, you're a big guy, but we get paid pretty well by Lord Rodrigo, so and also the gig's not so bad." Um, I mean, if you're looking for a dancing gig, I mean, he looks for all sorts. Well, I mean, you're kind of an oddity. I imagine it might pay a little well. But no, no, there aren't. But really, if you were looking for a dancing gig, you really should have talked to Carmen before she went inside, because she sort of vets all of the boys and girls. Maybe, no problem. Almost all these places are run by Lord Rodrigo. Any of them are good for a drink, and they're not gonna, you're not gonna end up getting pickpocketed blind or something like that, as if you went like further south. So I'd stick around the block here, and if you're planning on coming for the show later, you only got about 4 more hours until sundown, and that's when we'll be opening up. Yeah, this oh good. This portion of town. Well, if you're looking to visit the temple, I'm sure you'll have an opportunity in the next few days. Word on the street has been that Juan's funeral will be within the week. So, um, uh, probably would be a service there, and there may be a procession to the property. I can't say. I know that they have their own crypts and tombs up in the castle, but I imagine that there would be some sort of service at the Temple of Gazra. Well, there's a lot of charm to Old Town. There's many different, probably many different things to find since I was last here, because it's been at least over a decade, if not more. Sometimes I forget these things, but this area is mostly brothels, gambling houses, bars. There's probably some places, if you are so inclined to chase dragons or catch some sort of high, then you're able to explore that sort of thing about. Again, the laws of the Kingsland are applicable here, but they are very loosely enforced. And so, as long as the particular establishment does not do anything to rile with the constabulary, then they are left to their own devices. Um, the further south you go from here, along the wall, the worse it gets up until you get closer to the docks. Um, Outside of the walls is Southward. That is where most of, if you're from the Kingsland and you resettle here for whatever purpose the king has sent you here for, most of his subjects stick to Southward, and that is just so that they are able to go about their lives unmolested or unharassed, if I may say. Um, then the Margrave's Tower and the fortress and barracks for the soldiers for the Kingsland are further down along the Stoneside docks. You'll find that most ships come in through Stoneside. It is where most conventional traffic would come that would not have been like, I mean, we came in with Julio Rodrigo. There's not too many, bigger names within the city to be traveling with. And so we came in through the nice docks. Stoneside is rougher, but regarding Old Side, I mean, or Old Town, I should say. Uh, I mean, it is a large, bustling port city. There's so much about this city, so many tales to tell, so many different businesses and places to go, and places of intrigue, and some of them may be gone, some of them may still be here. But I knew that Raul's business, this has been thriving for years, and he has opened up many other places on other islands as a result. Well, think about what the people were based upon, my friend. We have founded a society by the Pirate King. What gods would you worship? Pirates. You would worship gods of the sea, yes? Yes. And what other gods would you, any of these gods of the mainlanders that you would find to be particularly helpful to you? Perhaps there is a god of daring do. Perhaps there is a god of treasure. Perhaps there is a god of, you know, uh, dance. I do not know. Perhaps, but they're the gods of the mainlanders, and frankly, uh, I look upon them mostly like this Fultus that these cultists have brought to our shores. If there was a deity that was revered for some time, although not so much anymore. Our people were rather fond of Asmodeus for a time. Well, power, scheming, treachery, um, things you want to be good at in pirate life. Yes, indeed. And as we bent the knee to the Kingsland, worship of Asmodeus was um, how you say, brush under rug. It's most of the temples were shut down by forces of the Kingsland. Some of them forcibly so, actually, and all that remains are remnants of them. You may find them checkered here and there. But yes, Asmodeus was a god that was rather prolifically worshipped. I do not know if that was necessarily one that the Rodrigo family was fond of. I never found Juan to be a great worshiper of anything, except for maybe family. An underground church of whom? Mayhap there is, but I would not know where it is. Hmm. Yep, you're not wrong. My family, for their part, was never highly religious either, and we never got involved with that. But there may be some that still secretly worship him here and there, but I doubt anyone would openly admit to it. Well, uh, hmm, it's a good question. To reflect upon it, I'd have to think on the vire, the viceroys. And I'm trying to think. Most of them are scoundrels and would not as a Rodrigo, that is, that I can think of. And it could very well be that Aquino is religious, but I doubt that he's very public about it. But many of their islands, they if they had something they worshipped, it would be gold. Yes, yes, amongst other things. Blood sacrifice contracts, sacrificing firstborns. There are any number of stories with regards to what various families may have done to gain power and prestige with regards to Asmodeus. Um, your guess is as good as any. It looks rather jagged, and it could be used for bloodletting. Well, no more strange than anything else that's been going on around these places. But yes, so about that drink, did we want to grab one, or are we very good? Well, so when you all are in one of the watering holes that are around the Lost Coast, um, or no, sorry, my apologies. It's not the Lost Coast. It's the Forbidden Coast, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. So the Forbidden Coast. Um, I don't know. It's lost. There is a boy that is at the bar. Uh, he looks like he could be 13 or 14. He can't be more than 15. Uh, but he is drinking at the bar and talking back and forth with the bartender. It looks like he's drinking something akin to like ale or something like that. But that said, I mean, even in like a society of this sort, it's not so terribly uncommon. But he's dressed in leathers and he's openly playing with a blade. Um, like, and the armor looks like it's fitted to him. It's a little bit bizarre. Um, but that said, you guys get your drinks, and Gabriel sits down at a table as he gets a load off after all the walking from this morning. Um, he's just one. He's sitting on a stool, and he's having to sit up pretty high on it in order to be at the bar. He's not like for his age, he's not very tall either. But that said, the boy is like sort of brandishing the blade and picking at his fingernails with it. And he's going back and forth. By the way, the boy does not look Castellanos. He looks like he's Kingslander or from Pescana or something to that effect. He's got a tan to him, but it's mostly probably from being in the sun, not from his heritage. His hair is almost like red, and it's like a Scottish, like orangish brownish. Um, he speaks with an accent as well that is not from around these parts. Sure. All right. With that society, you pick up that his accent is from what I'm whispering you. The bartender here is female, by the way, as are like, mm, uh, you looked around at a bunch of the bars. The clientele, well, not the clientele, the staff seems to be majority female with a few males. Mm. Why, certainly here. And she, produces whatever drink you pay for. For this place, it is a little bit expensive, and it would be a silver a drink. Okay. Hmm. He was actually he was jovially talking with the bartender. Um, and when you start to do that, he points the blade into the palm of his hand and begins to spin it a bit. And he gets sort of like a stern like look on his face as he cocks an eyebrow. He's like, "Mate, I don't know who you are, but we're not friends or pals, and so you know, your line of questioning and such, don't really appreciate it. So, if you could take your drink and go back and sit with what your friends came in, and leave me and the lady alone." Apology accepted. The only thing that you see the boy do is as you walk away, he sheaths the blade. Hmm. Most people know what happened to the Theocracy of the Pale. The government was run by clerics of Fultus who were like lawful, neutral, just very almost oppressive in their zealotry and such, and how they ran uh, their country. Some sort of catastrophe happened with the country. There was a plague. There was something that happened in the capital. A good deal of the church and clergy died in multiple different catastrophic events, and currently um, the area has been annexed by a bunch of other nearby countries just because there was no central government anymore after the theocracy fell. There was a cult that came up in the theocracy's place called the Cult of Black and White. The Cult of Black and White follow the two-faced god that is part of Foltus's personality. But all that happened probably within the last 5 years or so. Just a lot of turmoil coming out of that area. And Fultites were always insufferable to begin with, but those that have converted to the cult are even more insufferable because they worship a light and a dark aspect of their new deity. So, but mm, really, if you pick them out, again, followers of the church tended to either be wealthy or unless they took vows of poverty or anything like that. So, uh, you know, kid like him would likely have been a peasant, and peasants in the theocracy didn't get it so great. I mean, they were taught fire, brimstone. Fultus is the one true God, that all other gods are false in Fultus's eyes, that the church needed to be supported, and they were taxed heavily. They dealt with all of these crises that the church brought upon them, and they suffered for it. Um, so, you know, if he's a peasant type, he probably does. I mean, peasants universally would have worshipped Fultus out of fear, necessity, any of those sorts of things. But he, this far removed, hard to say if he's involved with one side or the other at this point. I mean, the one thing is that he's speaking with the accent of someone that grew up there. So, no problem. Uh, I would say so. You're trying to spark a discussion with religion. Hmm. Sure. Go ahead and roll religion. Right. So you know roughly everything that I just said, um, and in probably in better detail. There were, like at the highest levels of the church, it was revealed that devils had worked their way into leadership, and that they had begun to worship Dispater, and that you know he was leading the church astray. Um, and that again, that's what caused part of the schism amongst their faithful. Uh, with religion, yes, well, no, with that high of a religion, like a few other probably details of what happened from that campaign years ago, but at the same point in time, you would know that most peasants that are away from the theocracy uh, probably don't like to discuss religion at all. Like you would know with that high of like a religion check that they tended towards, if they got away from it, they were lucky, and they don't tend to like to dwell on that. So sure. Hmm. The boy's old enough where he would have seen the plague, and he would have been, if he was there and he grew up like the accent would suggest, he was probably there for a lot of the troubles that they had. Oh wow. Um, no one seems to mind the music with their drinks and such. And you can actually see that as you're sort of going about this, one of the, you know, absolutely. And you see that as you are performing, several of the staff begin to sort of like dance along with the performance. And you can see like they're not dressed in costumes for it at the moment or anything of that sort. Some of them do look like they may be, for lack of a better term, prostitutes. So they are dressed sort of like that. But you can see that Uh, you with that performance and you have bardic lore, correct? Oh, you may not have bardic lore. Uh, mm. Seems like slow whirling dancing that seems to pick up the pace as you pick up the tempo. Seems to be very belly dance inspired. Hmm? Again, and this will be the last warning I give with regards to assisting and trying to pile on a performance. There's very specific feats and skills to assist, and you can assist at any given point in time, but it's a really hard DC to hit, and if you don't hit it, then you detract from the performance. And there is a ability called Follow the Expert, which is actually a regular thing that almost anyone can do. But it's essentially you generally would want to assist someone that's an expert or better in the skill, and they can almost like apprentice you in that sort of aspect of things. But if you're not necessarily skilled in performance, and you don't have any feats applicable to it, and all those other items, you're likely going to hurt your friends rather than helping them if you try to assist. Okay, go roll a performance. So acrobatics will not impress anyone because it may be a great trick or something like that, but in order to get the flourish of impressing other individuals or actually be able to tie it into the music, you'd need a level of performance, and that's perfectly acceptable. That's a good one right there. And you manage to dance about with some of the other dancers and not seem completely out of place. Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, and I mean, there's not a ton of people here, by the way. It's like sort of mid-afternoon in the brothel gambling district, so it's mostly staff that are here, but you're well received by those that are there. You notice that the boy actually does clap for you and the dancers after you're done, but then he goes back to talking to the bartender afterwards. Mhm. She's well dressed, does not look like she's in any sort of costume or, and in fact, whereas Carmen was, showing off various assets of hers, this woman's actually demurely, dressed. She's not, uh, she's not dressed in any sort of fashion that would suggest that she does anything but bartend. The boy is human. The woman is probably human. She could be half elven, but that's just because she's got very finite features. She's Castellanos, though. The for not for what you've said, but also as a result of the performances, a set of silver shot glasses are brought over by one of the servers, and it looks like it has some sort of amber colored liquor in them. And you like look up, and it's directed to Kane and Co. By the way. Um, but the you look up, and the boy and the bartender both hold up glasses, and they both shoot whatever's in the glass, and then the boy goes back to his drink. Yes, very good. Cool. Uh, yes, but the liquor as it goes down. You're pretty sure it's a tequila or a variation of tequila. It's been something that's probably been, derived from some sort of uh, like aloe vera plant or some sort of agave or something like that. So it's a little bit spicier than what you would be used to on the mainland, but at any rate, liquor goes down just fine. Um, but that said, Boy and her just go back to their conversation, and that was that. The boy laughs when you say that, and he says, "Oh, no problem." All right. Yep. Nope. I did. You say that you go back up to the bar, or you say it sort of across. Well, dancing was at least amusing, so I figured that I'd at least send something over your way, mate. And your other friend's quite the performer as well, so I respect that sort of thing around here. Well, you keep trying at it. Everyone gets good at what they keep on practicing. No, 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 mate. I can't have too much more. I'm on the job, but I appreciate it. Her name is. Do me go over to her page really quickly. You may refer to me as Julieta. You got it, love. And she has another round delivered to your table. She and the boy seem to have a pretty good, relationship. Leastwise, they're joking back and forth, and they just seem to be shooting the breeze between the two of them. Oh, well, absolutely. You'll have to excuse me. And she looks over at the boy and she says, "Is he referring to like a cord of wood?" And he's like, "No, love, no, no. Cord is a god, um, not one about these parts. I'm afraid, Mister, that you're going to find that you'll be disappointed if you're looking for a temple of cord about these parts. Um, might be able to find one in one of the isles that." Actually does gladiatorial combat or something like that. I'm sure that there's probably a priest somewhere around there, but uh, no luck with regards to Cord on this island, at least not I would think. What kind of work you looking for, mate? Hmm. Down on your luck, paycheck to paycheck. Well, I'm sure that a big boy like yourself would find work pretty easily. Leastwise, maybe work will find you, who knows? Oh, I could see that, but, little guy like myself can get into small places and nooks and crannies and such, but there are some uses for something like you, I'm sure. You keep your nose around about where you want it to be. You might find it sniffing out some work here or there. What was your name again, mate? Ah, my name is Gendry. It's a pleasure to meet you. Yep, sure. He did. Yes. Sometimes he's given specifications by those that he commissions from, but in this particular instance, I'm uncertain. It could be that Lord Rodrigo gave him a specific schematic of how he wanted the daggers made, and far be it from my uncle, even as a master, to deny a request from a Rodrigo, even if it's a little bit loopy. But yes, these things. It depends on a variety of circumstances with regards to the contract. I suppose you would have to ask my uncle. It's a good question. It would have been a silver per person. I think you have. All right, so it would have been four unless you were buying for Gabriel, and that would have been five. Oh, okay. So it would have been four. Um, but so any anything else that you guys are doing over the course of the hours waiting for sun to set? Mm-hmm. Okay. You can certainly use diplomacy. Mhm. So 19. Listening around, the topic of the moment is actually the return of Julio Rodrigo and the death of Juan Rodrigo Infante de Galant. You're not getting a lot of chatter with regards to this missing dagger, and it's largely because, I mean, no one outside of Torres and his courier, up until you guys told Carmen, knew about the dagger missing. So, and you don't pick up any chatter with regards to anyone that just drops about like, someone trying to fence a dagger or anything of that sort. But, you the highwaymen. Uh, that is an interesting topic that is also brought up because of, and if you steer any of the conversation that way, um, that several of the individuals in the bar, they talk about that there's been sightings of the highwaymen and that the highwayman is returned to Porta del Sol and the Sun-Kissed Isles, and that all nobles should perhaps clutch their coin purses closer given that the highwayman has returned. That's actually, broached that topic, and you find that it's a thrilling topic for a lot of the people in the Isles, and they get sort of excited about it, as if this again they their blood and their people seem to be very close to their own folklore and their own tales and things of that sort. And the Highwayman seems to be a figure of interest to the people of the Isles. So, but other than that, not too much, juicy gossip of note. Other than there's talk of uh, Juan Rodrigo's funeral in a few days, and whether or not the Highwaymen will make an appearance. You see that everyone raises a glass to Juan Rodrigo. Uh, Very few people wouldn't, and particularly, you can see like Gabriel begins to tear up a bit at the mention of his former, um, not employer, so to speak, but his former master. Yes. No, I was saying yes. Sorry. So, drinking to Lord Rodrigo? Not this crowd. Leastwise, doesn't seem to take any bites from you. They just don't, like seem to be as interested in that sort of daring do. But that said, as night falls, the bartender here, she swaps over, and you see Gendry look across at her and says, "All right, love, it's time to be getting to serious work, I think." As he sort of takes his blade out of its sheath and he begins to sort of almost juggle it between his hands. And you see at one point he like tosses it up in the air and it goes like scary like a couple feet up, and then he just catches it at the hilt and then puts it back into its sheath. And accompanies Julieta over to, it looks like they're going over to the main bar. Yes, they're headed towards the Forbidden Coast. So, all right, so replacing that. Okie dokie. Well, this could go bad or it could go good with visibility, so quite possibly. So we're over on at the Forbidden Coast. Um, so a few things regarding this large two-story bar, and it goes past what you can see here and such. There's some doors that are probably difficult to see, but I'll describe the room as best I can. Uh, this main hall is two floors. There is this floor, and then the staircase goes up to a balcony that's overseeing the dancing stage. Um, Also on the second floor, in on the right hand side of the map above the bar, it looks like that there is some sort of box or office up there that has multiple open air, windows that go and oversee the stage down here. So, like above where Giulietta is at the bar, there is another floor above that, and there is like open air windows into an office up there. And you guys can see that there's, sort of individuals moving around up there and in the balcony as well. Looks like most of the people on the second floor have like tables, and they have like staff, serving their every need and such. On the downstairs floor, there are staff about, and they are seeing to the needs of the customers. But that being said, it doesn't look as prestigious to be on the ground floor. Uh, Now, with this ground floor, there is a group of bards that are off to the left of the stage that are playing. There is one with a lute, there's one with multiple drums set up, and then there is a bard with a violin that are playing along for the dancers. Um, and as like you guys came in here almost at opening, but it was a couple minutes after. You see that there's other staff and wenches and such, but Julieta, as she arrives, she becomes like the staff seem to defer to her as the chief bartender for the Forbidden Coast. Gendry goes right over and sits down at a stool right next, and Julieta and him continue to have their conversation. Um, Describing a few other things in here, there is a chandelier directly above the middle of this room that illuminates everything heavily. That's why I don't have the light in here as dim. It's very bright due to the chandelier. You can see that there are off-duty guards here, there are dockhands, there are sailors. There are a few other individuals of note as well. Um, Currently speaking, there are four dancers about the room. Uh, there are a dancer that's on the floor. There's a dancer that's actually on a table dancing about. And there are two dancers going about the stage. Um, it's a mixture of male and female dancers, just like as you've seen about the brothels and things of this sort here. It seems to be a mix of male and females pretty evenly. Looks like between this red curtain that goes to the back that there's more air spaces to go back there, but it looks like that's mostly staff that are headed back in that direction. Occasionally, you'll see, normal folks headed up to the second floor. Uh, some of them going into with like a dancer. There are other dancers and presumably what you'd refer to as prostitutes about. And here, they don't appear to be one, too terribly poor or in bad condition, and two, to have any sort of measure of disrespect in their society. These individuals seem to actually, have like a pretty well-to-do job here, and they seem to be in control of the situation. The patrons do not seem to be in control. You don't see any bouncers or guards or anything of that sort. At best, the only person that's been armed about, besides Carmen and the two guards that you saw outside, is Gendry. Um, so. That said, uh, that's pretty much the setup of the room. Just like every other bar here, they have a setup in the corner that is for the captain in the event that he were to appear. And they also have two very nice high back leather chairs down at the bottom as well. Okay. Um, when you mention it to them as you go past, the thing is that the guards would um, say, "I'd wait to speak to Carmen." Oh, so uh, he would go over. Uh, Actually, he'll wait with you. He's like, I do not know exactly what all our friends are doing, but best to see how this goes. Um, it's very different. Whereas the brothels tend to keep a semblance of control with like the amount of guards that they have and other things of that sort. Um, in this particular instance, uh, the what is it? Uh, there doesn't appear to be any armed guys except for the two outside. Uh, the staff seem to be respected as opposed to disrespected. And just in general, like the clientele here are as a higher level of clientele. Like the ship captain that's here looks like she's pretty well to do. Some of the nobles that are up in the balcony look like they're well dressed and enjoying themselves. You might find those sorts of people secreted at a brothel in Pascana, but like most of the guards have a weapon, the sailors have weapons, ship captain has a weapon. The only people that don't appear to have the weapons are the bards, and some of the staff. A lot of the dancers are carrying blades around, and in fact, some of them are dancing with them. Wouldn't upset anybody. Might make them curious as to why you're peace tying it, but you know. Um, she appears to be watching the performances, and she's got like a smile on her face. The old deckhand, you actually recognize he was at the King's Rest when you guys were there the previous night. So, but he appears to, the way that they're interacting, he appears to either be friends with her or work with her or something like that. You're not too terribly certain, but um, that said, she's dressed like she's a well-to-do either merchant or ship's captain, probably ship's captain, given the blade that she's carrying and the way that she's dressed. That's fine. And in here, the drinks are actually less inside of here, if that's believable. And there's it's only 5 copper per. Yeah, yeah, they do, and they bring it in pretty short order. Juliet seems to be pretty fast with drinks, and every once in a while, if she starts to fall behind, you see Gendry actually hop the bar and begin to assist her. Um, you can go ahead and roll a perception check. No problem. Um, with regards to your general perception of the area and things of that sort, um, you catch several of the staff members and some of the dancers. Not all of them, and it may be that the tattoo is someplace, it'll, a lot of them have a stylized version of the tattoo about them. And a lot of the decor in here actually, if you look at the leafings on, some of the shelving or on the bar or something like that, roses are pretty frequently incorporated into the the decor here, presumably. The tattoos are largely black or navy, if you had to say about it, but um, very few are colored, and anything that's like engraved or what have you, none of that is colored, of course. It's just roses are incorporated. But that said, anyone else doing anything? By the way, Mike, you notice that Arashi is missing a dagger. No, no, no. Mike Hanlon does. I'm gonna say with that nine that you actually don't notice it now. You're gonna notice it later. Uh, the you have DCs to hit and such. However, there are consequences for critical failures. But yes, everyone has like if you wanted to hit like something's passive, it's generally 10 plus their check in it. So like for example, sometimes you'll actually have to roll to hit someone's fortitude. It's not happens too terribly frequently. It's usually for like and actually this is more like if you're rolling to trip someone, usually you're rolling versus their defense, which is like 10 plus their dexterity saving throw or something like that, and you know, things like that. So by 10. Yes, and a one will. I was going to say a one automatically brings some. A one and a natural 20 both bring things one step higher. By the way, they and a 20 will never not at least be a success. But I think if you roll a natural 20 and you miss their AC still, you hit, but you cannot get a critical success with that. Similar instances come up with regards to natural ones, depending on circumstance. You came into the game with two, so I took away that extra one that you had. Yes, because he spent one last game. Okay. Um, you know, you go through and you can go ahead and roll diplomacy. Gendry will tell the sailor that was sitting next to you to buzz off as he comes down with Julieta. Oof. Well, that would be a critical failure. Um, and it doesn't actually, unless you want to hero point it. Okay. Yeah, sure. Go ahead and you get your reroll. Well, that's not a critical failure. Uh, but you're chatting with Julieta and Gendry, and um, they go back and forth, and you don't learn anything of note from the two of them. It's just like, interesting. Like they just talk about, it's a busy night tonight, that Carmen's going to be dancing soon, all this sort of stuff. And by the time Carmen begins to get up on stage, um, when the other dancers sort of go out and begin to work the crowd a little bit more, you don't really gather much information. Right. And it's about this point in time that Carmen takes the stage. And you can see that a variety of the other dancers continue to go out and work the crowd as they uh, go out and dance through the audience. They continually are using blades, and the one dancer is using fire. The other dancer has butterflies coming about him. So these are all moving throughout the crowd, and they seem to be doing so in a semi-safe fashion, although sometimes it gets a little bit close to people, and it's a little bit, death-defying almost, but at least for, not trying to injure the audience. But Carmen gets up on stage, and she is, for lack of my description skills, a virtuoso. She gets up and wearing the same outfit that you saw her in earlier. She's just moving about the stage from one area to the next, just lithe, beautiful, and completely, sort of. It's almost as if she can float or fly at points as she moves from area of the stage to area of the stage. And her costume is meant to be airy and sort of float and flit about her. And so she seems to be. The song is um, pretty upbeat and pretty high tempo as she comes out. Um, and then it gets slower and more morose as the dance goes on. And you can see that she's got quite a knack for bringing emotion into her dancing, as you can almost see her in tears as the dance begins to slow down. Okay, you're clapping, and it's seems to be well received and such. But she is the focal point of everything at the moment, and so. Um, as her dance sort of winds down with the sorrow and the sadness, you can see that she eventually just sort of dips back and falls to her back, and then just sort of kicks a leg into the air, and that's sort of where the crescendo is for the song, and the spotlights sort of end at that point, and the stage is engulfed in a bit of darkness. There's still light in the room, so you can still sort of see where she is. Um, but then, after a few moments, the audience, claps. Carmen stands back up. The lights come back up, and she bows and then walks off the stage. Oh, you said that to Gabriel. My apologies. I thought you were saying that to Virgil for a second. I completely missed it there. Um, um, it was a dance of the Isles before and after the occupation of the Kingsland. Yes. Yes, she's Carmen is quite the spirited flower, and even in her younger days, I remember coming here and watching her dance, and she was quite good. She has got better over time. Um, she's quite versatile and an excellent storyteller. I have seen dancers all across the world, and I will tell you that she's probably one of the best I've seen. But you can see that Carmen heads over to the bar afterwards, and that Giulietta and Gendry come over and it looks like that they're both congratulating her on the show, as Giulietta gets her looks like water. Is there anything anyone is doing? Yeah, yeah. It looks like there are either cases by various different places, or they have either hats or like a group up of shawl or something like that, someplace to th throw the coin and such to tip. You're thanked by the dancers or the bards, whomever you tipped, and they still go on about their performances. As most everyone seems to be performing except for Carmen at this point. Um, after you know a brief respite there, Carmen goes over. She greets the ship captain as if she knows her. They hug each other, sort of nod, and Carmen holds up, a couple fingers, and she says something along the lines of that she'll be back, as she works her way over to your guys' table or roundabout where you're at, um, and says, "Oh, so you all did end up coming back. How is your investigation going?" Thank you. I appreciate that. Um, I do try my best. And hopefully it pleased Raoul as she looks up at the box upstairs, and you guys can see like in like sort of a darkness up there that a couple figures are standing in the box upstairs. Um, and she turns back to you and says, "You all still would like to meet him?" Who is he with? He is with one of well, is his assistant, I suppose, is the best way to put it. Uh, all three of those partially apply. It's difficult to say. Well, follow me, as she says, and she motions for you all to follow her up to the second floor. Do you guys get your do you guys get your friend that's at the back of the bar with Gabriel, or no problem? So we'll, got it. So one second, and I will grab everyone except for Gabriel because he's already up. Oop, I copied you guys instead of moved you guys. So one second, I've got to delete your doppelgangers. They're dead. So one moment, I'm going to fan you guys out a little bit. And then you can see that this is the area above the bar. And let me just make sure that line of sight is good. Yes, perfect. Um, so you can see the chandelier and the lights from up here that are shining down on the stage. And Carmen begins to walk past the tables that oversee the downstairs, and she nods to the gentleman as she passes. So she opens up the doorway and she says, "May I present to you Lord Raul Rodrigo?" And you can see there's an individual sort of sitting almost seductively on a well-carved desk. I'll describe him more as more people catch up. She's allowing you all to go inside on the desk. Okay, that said, um, anyone else doing anything? Okay, cool. Just checking. Carmen motions for everyone to go inside. And then Carmen will close the door behind you. There's not a locking sound. But that said, you can still see out the windows from this box out into the floor below, and you can hear the band start back up. Um, and one moment, let me see. Oh, that's not the song that I wanted. So, playlist. It's playing now. It should be playing right now. Oh, I server muted it? All right. So, that said, um, as he is sort of sitting there seductively, the man standing before you is breathtaking. Breathtaking is likely not even the word. He's handsome, beautiful, gorgeous, all things at the same time. He's dressed in silken finery, and you can almost see everything about his appearance is perfect and well manicured. His dark mop of hair occasionally covers one of his eyes, which he gently brushes aside every so often. You can see as he does so, his dark brown eyes sort of draw you in like the longest of sunsets upon a virgin beach. You can't help but stare into them, but fear you, like Narcissus, who could not tear his gaze away from his reflection, may not be able to tear your eyes away from him if you stare longer. His hint of a sheer white silken shirt cuts a deep V down his chest, almost down to his waist. Unlike any of his brothers, there is no sword belt here. There is, in fact, it seems to be no weapons upon his person. Well, save maybe like one, because you see his tight, form-fitting leather pants feed directly into his thigh-high boots. Uniquely, these thigh-high boots have a thick, inch, inch and a half, 2-inch heel to them. Um, as he looks about you all as you enter the room, he sort of considers you with his eyes, and he looks you all up and down. And you almost feel naked. Like then he sort of seductively bites his lip and draws his tongue over his teeth as if he's considering options when selecting a meal. And for a moment, despite your leanings or misgivings, you long that he considers you. But you manage to shake off that feeling. He then speaks, and it is only now that you realize how quiet it is in this room compared to the din downstairs, even with the music floating up here. And he says, "Yes." His hair falls sort of over his one eye as he sort of looks at the ground. Then he looks back directly into Virgil's eyes, and he says nothing, but he just shakes his head. He looks at you, and you can see the troubadour behind him, that second that Carmen was referring to, sort of is strumming quietly, but then, sort of strikes up like a fast chord for a moment, and then goes back to, sort of a silent strumming. And Raoul looks directly at Sterngard as he says, "So, what do you want?" Hmm. You see him sort of look coyly at the ground, and then he looks back at you, and he sort of glances towards the ceiling and all around, and it's almost like he says it with his eyes, but that you think that, yes, he has enemies. He moves uh, in between you and Virgil and nearly knocks Virgil over as he goes to the large window. And then he puts his hand on Grail's shoulder and almost like sort of beckons you to come over and look down with him. He is a little bit under 6 foot. He lithely puts a hand across your shoulder and takes his other hand and points out over the dance hall. And he very quietly, almost like a whisper to you, says, I collect beautiful things. You see as his hand goes over various dancers, he nods and then he walks past you back to his desk. This time he goes behind it, although he very just sort of pulls the chair back and it's again almost everything does has like a sensual nature to it as he sort of slides into it and then he pushes it back a little bit as he kicks his feet up. As you say that and you begin to go off on that, you see that he holds one single finger in front of his lips and he purses them for a moment and then he goes, shh, call me Raoul. He looks up, he looks back at you and around the room. It's like he's considering something that's important, weighty, lofty, something that weighs on his mind for a moment. And then he turns his gaze back and says, yes. He looks over to the uh, troubadour who's strumming the instrument next to him, and the troubadour finally like looks up from the instrument and looks at you and says, Lord Rodrigo has many enemies. Could be any number if someone wanted to hurt him. And he again looks at the troubadour who speaks on his behalf. And the troubadour says, Lord Rodrigo went to meet with Torres in person. They discussed the need and the general layout and figurement of the daggers, and then we left the rest to Torres. Raoul gets a look on his face like a thought occurs to him. And he puts a finger to his lips, not to shush this time, but almost in thought. And he sort of licks his lips for a moment, and then he brings that finger down into a fist that furrows underneath of his chin. Yes. The troubadour interjects, says, yes, he could think of several individuals that he had spoken to with regards to the blade. He looks at the troubadour, and he looks at all of you. He holds up a hand for a moment, as if he looks away in pain, and then holds up a finger, says, I think that our conversation needs to be over at this point. I appreciate what you're all doing here, and you assisting Torres, but to glean any more information at this point would be prying too far into my personal matters. So, that being said, thank you for your service to Torres, and if there's anything else that Carmen can do for you within reason, please just ask her. But our conversation is done. The pleasure was all mine, as he smiles sort of coyly. And with that said, Carmen opens up the door as if she was listening to the conversation. Here, friends, we can go back downstairs and you can have a drink on the house, if you will. And she begins to lead you all back down the staircase. Yes. Uh, it doesn't take a perception check to gather that she becomes alarmed when you bring that up for whatever reason or purpose. And her first instinct appears to be to go to, you saw where the blades were hidden on her person earlier, and one of her hands goes to one of them, and she says, what do you mean to bring up that name here? That there, Rosa Negro was the ones that stole it? That is impossible. They would not dare infringe upon Rodrigo. Perhaps. She gets a confused look on her face, and this, it, it would be foolish. They would be attempting to either embarrass or infringe upon Raoul, and that would be, oh, oh, yes, that would. She takes you along. She takes you along the railing, and she points down to two individuals down in the main of the bar. Um, and it's the sickly looking man and his bodyguard that she sort of points at. And she says, "Those, the name that you bring up, the Guild of Thieves, so to speak, those two men down there are associated with Le Rosa Negro. But the issue is that whereas they would feign friendship with Raoul, I've long suspected that Adlet has had other designs on his mind." Well, if your suspicion is right, the only ones that would be willing to attempt such a thing, at least that I know of, are Adlat Lakowin, the sickly man downstairs, and his bodyguard Ciro. Hmm. Well, someone was trying to embarrass Raoul. I suppose it is in our interest to deal with the situation. But that said, I cannot offer you very much in this particular instance. I do not even know if they really are the ones that did this situation. Um, but you must be careful because if what I know is correct, the man has many agents loyal to him as well. And so you must be cautious in how you move because while many would not dare cross Raoul, he may have, I was to say the stupidity, the arrogance probably is more applicable to this one, but both in equal measures is what you would need to attempt to steal from a Rodrigo, and he has it in abundance. Ciro is Adlat's bodyguard. He is an agent for him that handles his dirty work. No, Ciro is not an equal to Adlat. Adlat has much more money than he does. Adlat has a home that is nearby. I would venture a guess that the place is guarded, just given the fact of his line of business that he is in. But he masquerades as a trader um, during the day. Uh, I believe he associates himself with the Iron Throne. It is a mercantile company that's based out of Ancernia, but that is just a cover for his true business. Oh, he is associated with the individuals that you mentioned previously, La Rosa Negra. Their leader. No, he is not their leader, but he's in a leadership position, I think. I would say so, yes. Well, for your own sake, as she looks up at you, I would have you look into it quietly, because, again, dealing with the situation is preferable, as if it is as you say it is, then they were likely trying to embarrass Raoul. But beyond that, this seems to be something that you're more interested in getting the daggers back for Torres so that he can receive his payment. Have you thought about prostitution? I mean, someone of your size. Well, I mean, I'm not willing to pay for you, but I'm sure that I can get you clients. Suit yourself. Um, but that said, yes, I'd be very cautious as to how you approach this because he is a very dangerous individual and his bodyguard is quite deadly. Indeed, and similarly, please keep it away from any of Raoul's businesses. We do not need this to reflect on him. Very good. Very good. Raoul did tell several of us that he was getting them and that he was very much so looking forward to their delivery. Uh, that he would like to have something that the great bladesmith Torres made in his collection. Unlike most of his brothers and sister, he does not carry any blade, and it would be something for him to have uh, a keepsake made by Torres. As Torres is getting older in years, it has become less and less often that he takes on new projects. That I do not know. Uh, Adlat is not exactly always well. He will likely be leaving earlier than closing, much earlier, in fact. I expect them to be here no later than 10 or 11 bells. It was about 7-ish when you guys got in here, so you've got like probably, 2 hours at most to wait for him. Home? Yes. I've been there before. Yes, and she does. It's actually closer to the center of Old Town. You're welcome. Is there anything else that I can assist you with on this matter? I am not sick of either, actually, as she looks at Kane. But whereas flattery will get you some places, it will not get you everywhere. Yes, well, some of those places you will not get to, my friend. So you guys, mhm. But that's a uh, well, actually, Mike, well, and I will allow you to use your point. Go ahead. Got to drag it out. Yep. Go ahead and reroll. You can no luck effects can never be rerolled with a luck effect. So hero points cannot be hero pointed. Similar with halfling luck, Mr. Kane actually has to decide between whether or not he uses halfling luck or a hero point because he can't use both. But that is said, that's a great question that you asked that we can answer next game at the beginning of the game. Mm, yep. But that said, 150 XP to everyone, and we'll handle you guys going back down to the bar to maybe case it a little bit more and to figure out how you're going to, figure out the next step of this next game. Mhm. Okay. Appreciate that because I'll have to develop that anywho, so that works out well for me. Um, so cool deal, and we will be skipping next game because it will be right before Magfest, and I'll need the time to pack and stuff like that as opposed to fill us out. So the next game will be the 18th of January. Cool. Right. Good game, everybody. You as well.